Damien's wife, Ariana, had once loved Ethan, and the moment Ethan returned, the first thing he did was corner Damien into signing a cruel wager. The agreement was simple: if Ariana abandoned Damien for him 9 times, Damien would have to file for divorce. Damien agreed. The 9th time came with nothing more than a phone call from Ethan. Ariana was driving with Damien down a rainy highway when she suddenly slowed, pulled over, and turned to him. "Damien, something urgent came up. I need to go. You can get out here and grab a cab home, right?" Before he could answer, she pressed an umbrella into his hand, ignoring the sheets of rain outside, ignoring the fact he'd been battling stomach pain all day. Her only urgency was getting to Ethan. "Call me when you're home," she said. Damien watched as she tapped Ethan's address into the GPS. His chest tightened like a vice. The sports car roared off into the night. Rain slanted down in icy gusts, soaking his suit within seconds. The wind cut against his face, numbing his skin. He walked alone through the downpour, the leather of his shoes splitting, the blisters on his feet breaking open until blood mingled with rainwater. 3 hours later, he finally reached home. Doubling over, clutching his aching stomach, he collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. Through the blur of rain in his eyes, a figure approached, Ethan, holding an umbrella, smiling as if savoring a private victory. "Hurts, doesn't it? Do you regret signing that wager now? Did you honestly believe that after all these years Ariana had even the slightest real feeling for you? You forgot, Damien, she's always loved me. Whatever scraps of affection she gave you, in my presence, they mean nothing." Damien staggered to his feet. His face was pale, but his voice was flat, drained of all warmth. 9 times. You've won. As you wished, I'll divorce her. He turned, unsteady but resolute, walking toward the house. And as the rain fell, old memories pressed in from all sides. Damien and Ethan had once been college roommates. On Ethan's 19th birthday, Damien saw Ariana for the first time. She stood there with a quiet, dignified grace that seized his heart in an instant. That night, Ethan introduced Ariana to everyone, then publicly announced his new girlfriend, a notorious campus troublemaker. Damien still remembered the look on Ariana's face: shock, hurt, disbelief. One glance was enough for Damien to understand. Ariana loved Ethan. But Ethan craved excitement. He preferred girls who could skip class with him, drag him into speeding cars, and steal kisses in bathroom stalls, not a rule-abiding young woman like Ariana. He thought she was too controlling, too serious. In the end, when he discovered Damien's interest in her, he decided to use it to his advantage, staging accidental meetings, arranging dinners, pushing her toward Damien until she stopped resisting. Damien saw it all: her struggle, her humiliation, the gradual surrender. By junior year, just as Ethan had planned, she was Damien's girlfriend. 2 years later, Ariana proposed. For 3 years after the wedding, they lived as polite, respectful partners. The days were calm, warm, predictable. Damien truly believed they would grow old together. A month ago, Ethan returned to the country and invited Damien to meet. Over coffee, he laid his cards on the table. "Damien, I've changed my mind. I want Ariana back. You two have known each other for what, 9 years? Let's make a wager: if she leaves you for me 9 times, you lose. You divorce her and give her back to me." Damien, almost against his own better judgment, agreed. Because he needed to know, did she still carry Ethan in her heart? And then he watched, in brutal clarity, how Ariana ran to Ethan without hesitation. The first time was on their 3rd wedding anniversary. Knowing her love for astronomy, he had chosen the perfect spot for an outdoor picnic to watch the meteor shower. Halfway there, one text from Ethan made her turn the car around, leaving Damien alone on a mountaintop with nothing but the wind for company all night. The second time, he was scheduled for surgery. Moments before it began, she disappeared to help Ethan with a trivial matter at his company, and stayed gone for an entire week. Damien signed his own consent forms, went under anesthesia without her, and later endured the pain of recovery, follow-up visits, and meals alone. The third time was at his grandmother's funeral. She slipped away from the graveside to have lunch with Ethan. Each time she walked away, something in him unraveled. Every ounce of love he had for her bled out until there was nothing left. He realized that she hadn't merely kept Ethan in her heart all these years, she had never, for a single day, let him go. This time, Damien lost completely, and he was ready to pay the price. When he got home that night, he showered in water hot enough to chase the chill from his bones, pulled on comfortable clothes, and poured himself a heavy glass of whiskey. Only after draining it did he feel alive again. From a drawer, he took out the divorce papers he'd prepared on the day of the wager, signed them, and slid them across the table toward Ethan. "Give these to her." Ethan raised a brow, surprised. "Why me?" "I don't want to waste time explaining why I'm leaving. If it comes from you, she'll sign without even reading it." At that, Ethan's smugness returned. He pocketed the papers and offered a mock comfort. "Don't take it too hard. In a few days, I'll introduce you to some gorgeous women." "Sure," Damien said. The quick, easy agreement made Ethan pause. "You're serious? Just like that, you're over Ariana?" Damien gave a low, bitter laugh. "I've only ever loved one person in my life, and this is how it ends. I gave her 9 chances, and she made sure I lost every single one. If I still couldn't let go, I'd be pathetic. From now on, I live for myself." The words had barely left his mouth when the front door swung open. Ariana stepped through the doorway, froze at the sight of Ethan. "Ethan? I just dropped you at the hospital, what are you doing here?" Ethan didn't bother explaining that his twisted ankle had been an act. He simply smiled, picked up the document on the table, and walked over to her. "Came looking for you. Here, do me a favor and sign." Her eyes stayed on him the entire time, she didn't even glance at the paper before signing exactly where his finger indicated. Only after her pen lifted from the page did she think to ask what it was. Ethan started to tell her, but something in his mind shifted. "It's a special gift Damien and I prepared for you. 6 months from now, you'll understand. Trust me, you'll be pleasantly surprised." Ariana's curiosity piqued for a moment, but before she could look closer, Ethan handed the document to Damien and stood to leave. "That's that. I'll get going. Good night." Her interest snuffed out, she immediately offered to drive him home. Ethan shook his head, shooting Damien a look layered with meaning. "No need. Stay with Damien. After all, there's not much time left." "Not much time?" Ariana frowned, about to ask, but Ethan was already at the door. She grabbed her car keys without thinking, tossing a line over her shoulder as she followed him out. "Damien, I'm just taking Ethan home. I'll be right back." The door slammed shut. From the moment she'd walked in to the moment she left, she hadn't looked at Damien once. He was used to it. Without a flicker of hurt, he tucked the agreement away and went upstairs. Lights off, he drifted into a shallow sleep. Half an hour later, the sound of movement stirred him. The light snapped on. Blinking, Damien saw Ariana at his desk, slipping several boxes of condoms into a drawer. Then she climbed into bed, curling against his chest, warm breath grazing his ear. "You used to wait up for me every night. Why so early tonight, That was before. There would be no more before. I'm not feeling well. My stomach's acting up," he murmured. Something in her expression shifted, guilt, faint but there. "Sorry. I forgot. If you'd remembered, would you still have left me standing there?" Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Silence filled the room before she finally spoke in a low voice. "Ethan twisted his ankle. He's always hated pain. I just panicked. I promise, it'll never happen again. But this had been the 9th time. A bitter smile touched Damien's lips. You're right. It won't happen again. After all, they were about to be divorced. When Damien woke the next morning, a cup of coffee sat on the nightstand. Ariana walked in carrying a breakfast tray. Damien, drink your coffee and come eat. Scenes like this had been a daily ritual before Ethan's return from Canada. Back then, Damien thought that was love, enough love to make him accept Ethan's wager. And yet he had lost, utterly. This time, he didn't respond the way he used to. Instead, he got out of bed, took a shirt from the wardrobe. No need. I don't have much of an appetite. I'm heading to the mall later, you go ahead. After washing up, he slung a bag over his shoulder and headed for the door, only for Ariana to grab her coat and insist on driving him. He let her. The moment he sat in the passenger seat, he noticed the familiar charm that had hung from the mirror was gone, replaced with a luxury car ornament. On the dash, a neat row of Marvel figurines stood where his old decor had been. Ariana caught his gaze and offered a quick explanation. Yesterday I left the car window open. The old stuff got soaked, so my assistant swapped in new ones while cleaning. An assistant? Damien remembered that Ethan had an entire room full of such figurines, his pride and joy. He didn't call her out, only asked, "Where are my old ones?" Her expression froze for a second. The assistant tossed them. "I'll have him get them back." Hearing her still covering for herself, Damien just felt tired. "If they're gone, they're gone. I don't want them." "You really don't?" she asked, surprised. He gave a small nod. "No. Along with this marriage, and with her, he wanted nothing." That evening, Damien attended a college reunion alone. The room was already crowded, laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. "Damien. Here on your own? Didn't bring your better half?" Ariana swamped at work, someone called. Before he could answer, Ethan, seated squarely in the center, jumped in, all casual ease. "She had a meeting this afternoon, running till 8. After that she's got other plans, so no way she could make it." The fact that Ethan spoke of Ariana's schedule with such precision drew playful laughter around the table. "Guess Ethan knows Ariana better than anyone, keeps track of her every move." Ethan lifted his glass, swirling the amber liquid with a faint smile. "Not really," he said. "Ariana just mentioned it herself last night, when she was driving me home from the hospital." The table erupted with knowing chuckles. "You two still talk that often? Good thing Damien's got a big heart. He knows exactly what's between you and Ariana, so he doesn't mind. If it were anyone else, knowing Ariana used to follow you around like a shadow, they'd probably lose their mind." "Right," another classmate chimed in. "Damien's the husband of a CEO now, marriage solid, home life happy, and don't forget, you were the one who set them up in the first place. Why would he get upset? Besides, if you'd wanted to be with Ariana, you could have been ages ago. Everyone knows she only listens to you, utterly devoted." Ethan's smirk deepened. "Exactly. Funny thing is, when I told her to go after Damien, she did. Even the proposal was my idea, she only decided to give him a title after I nudged her. People who knew would say she and Damien were dating. Those who didn't, might think I forced her into it." The words hit Damien like a blow to the chest. He'd always believed Ariana had proposed because she saw his devotion, because she wanted to spend her life with him. Now he learned that even their marriage had been orchestrated by Ethan. For a moment, it felt like something solid lodged in his chest, crushing the air from his lungs. The conversation carried on without him. Damien excused himself, retreating to the restroom. When he returned, the group had started a game of truth or dare. Ethan had just lost, drawing a truth card. "Name the most devoted admirer you've ever had," and give examples. Damien's lashes flickered, he turned his gaze away. Ethan leaned back, voice slow and indulgent. She started chasing me when she was 7. This year marks the 20th year. At 15, she gave me a necklace her family only ever gives to a son-in-law, swearing she'd only love me for life. Whenever she found out I was dating someone, she'd drink herself sick for days, literally drank her stomach into trouble. And while I was living in Canada these past few years, she came to see me every week, bringing my favorite food, staying by my side no matter the cost. Each detail landed like a wave breaking against rock, the surge inside Damien growing into a storm. Damien remembered the day he married Ariana, when her mother, Margaret, had urged her to hand over the family heirloom necklace. Ariana had claimed she'd lost it. He thought of all those nights she'd come home drunk, brushing it off as work functions, while he played the fool, tending to her. The holidays she always had to travel for business, how he'd pack her suitcase himself, tucking in her favorite sweets. All the while, he'd been giving her everything, blind to the fact that she was still chasing Ethan, unwilling to let go. And he had known none of it. The ache in his chest tightened, stealing his breath, while the group around them marveled at Ethan's story. Ethan, who is she? Do we know her? Someone that devoted, you must have been touched. If you're really together, you've got to introduce us. Ethan's eyes slid to Damien, his smile almost lazy. Sure. Next time, I'll bring her along. The words had barely left his mouth when the door to the private room swung open. Ariana stepped inside, smiling. Introduce who? And why wait until next time? Ethan, are you done? We were going to the concert, remember? Her gaze landed on Damien. Her smile faltered, and something uneasy flickered in her eyes. Damien, what are you doing here? He recalled that morning, when she dropped him at the mall and told him she'd be working late into the night so he shouldn't wait up. So, working late meant a concert with Ethan. He gave a small, soundless laugh and met her eyes. As you can see, college reunion. She nodded quickly, changing the subject. Perfect timing. I'll drive you home. Damien picked up his phone, ordering a car. His voice was even. No need. I'll take a cab. You two go enjoy the concert. He left without another glance. By the time he reached the curb, Ethan had caught up, grabbing his arm. Upset? I'll give you my ticket. You two only have 6 months left, make a memory. Otherwise, when you're old and looking back, you might regret it. Damien pulled his arm free, taking 2 steps back, his expression like ice. No. After the divorce, I'll forget the past. There's nothing between us worth remembering. Ethan's tone dripped false sympathy. Come on, Damien. Sure, Ariana only ended up with you because I pushed her, but you helped me out, too. If you can't have her love, fine, but no good memories of your marriage either? That would make me downright cruel. Even as he pretended to console, Ethan kept hold of him, unwilling to let him walk away. They were still locked in that tense struggle when the sedan came barreling toward them. The driver leaned on the horn, but by the time they turned their heads, it was too late to get out of the way. In that split second, Ariana lunged forward, wrapping Ethan in her arms and shoving him toward safety. Damien tried to move, but the car clipped him hard from the side, sending him crashing to the pavement. Blood poured from his mouth and nose, pooling beneath him. Pain shot through every joint and bone until his body convulsed in violent spasms. God, it hurt. The world began to dim, his consciousness slipping away, yet the last thing he saw was Ariana, crouched over Ethan, soothing him as though he were the only one who mattered. He didn't know how much time passed before the pain dragged him back into awareness. When he opened his eyes again, he was in a hospital bed. Ariana's face hovered above him, lined with worry. Damien, how do you feel? You've been unconscious for a whole week. Do you have any idea how worried I've been? Her urgency might have moved him once. But he remembered what he'd seen before blacking out, her arms around Ethan, her comfort for him while Damien bled in the street. She had never truly seen him. Never put him first. Not in danger, not in life. Drawing in a shallow breath, his voice raspy, he said, "I'm fine. Go take care of Ethan." Ariana hesitated, as if realizing what he meant, and rushed to explain. "Ethan's fine. You were badly hurt, of course I stayed to take care of you." Damien only shook his head and murmured that he was tired, closing his eyes in feigned rest. She didn't press him, tucking the blanket around him before ordering a light lunch. Then her phone rang. "A company matter," she said, "and she'd have to go, she'd visit again tomorrow." Not long after she left, a nurse came to check on him, remarking how lucky he was to have such a devoted wife. Damien said nothing. He had just lifted the lid on his lunch when his phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. "Sorry, man. That car really rattled me, so I texted Ariana. She's having lunch with me now, then we're hitting the amusement park to blow off steam. There's a movie tonight too. You just rest up." Attached was a photo from one of the city's finest restaurants, a table laid with delicate, nutrient-rich dishes. Across from the camera, Ariana sat, dressed to perfection. Damien stared at the photos a long moment before typing just 4 words back. "Enjoy yourselves." The next week passed in a slow, predictable rhythm. Ariana came to the hospital every day, but never stayed more than 10 minutes. Ethan, on the other hand, sent Damien regular updates, practically a running commentary of their days together. She went with him to the beach to watch the sunset, collecting shells to spell out their names in the sand. She drove him into the countryside for joyrides, buying flowers and balloons to cheer him up like a child. She took him to the flower fields for a hot air balloon ride, snapping dozens of solo portraits of him with her camera. It wasn't overtly romantic, but it was far more than what one would do for just a friend, a careful, tender space that hovered somewhere above friendship yet just short of being lovers. And in all the years Damien had been with Ariana, she had never done any of those things for him. The difference between loving and not loving was stark. For the first time, Damien felt grateful he'd agreed to Ethan's wager. The doctor came in for his final checkup, handing Damien a prescription. "Nothing serious left. Have your wife handle the discharge papers and pick up the meds." Damien accepted the slip, his voice flat. "She's not my wife. I'm leaving." The door swung open just then. Ariana stood in the doorway, eyes wide. "Leaving? What do you mean?" Damien was momentarily caught off guard, then covered it smoothly. "Nothing. I just meant you haven't been around here much." Her expression eased. "I've been tied up with a new project, working overtime, so I haven't been able to take care of you." Watching her lie without a flicker of guilt, Damien's gaze cooled. "If you're that busy, there's no need to come. I can manage fine on my own." He meant it. Ariana, however, assumed he was sulking. "My fault. Work's almost wrapped up, I'll spend more time with you now." She moved to take him home and had her assistant deliver a stack of collectible figurines for him to choose from. Damien's expression didn't change. He'd never liked these things, someone else did. Even her attempts at appeasement were careless, thoughtless. When he said he didn't want them, Ariana rushed to offer alternatives. "Then I'll get you something else. A watch? A luxury car? Name it, whatever you like, I'll buy it." None of it stirred even the faintest ripple in him. For 3 years, every holiday and anniversary, Ariana had showered him with gifts. The logos and styles barely varied, the pieces stacking up in their walk-in closet until it resembled the storeroom of a luxury boutique. He used to take it as a sign of affection, accepting them with a show of gratitude even when he didn't care for them. But today, hearing her admit she didn't even know what he liked, he finally understood. She hadn't been choosing gifts with him in mind, she'd simply chosen the easiest route. The price tag guaranteed they couldn't be wrong. So this time, Damien was blunt. Don't bother. And don't buy me these things anymore. Ever. It was the first time she'd heard him speak that way, and a flicker of unease crossed her face. You're my husband. Giving you gifts is my duty, how could it be a bother? But what if he wasn't her husband? Oh, Ariana, how ridiculous. You don't even know you've already signed the divorce papers. In the months that followed, Ariana stayed mostly at home, leaving only for work. Damien quietly began packing his belongings, unused accessories, clothes, the bracelet he'd bought her, the curtains, the matching mugs, their framed photos. When she saw him clearing out so much at once, Ariana looked startled. She opened her mouth to ask, but Ethan's call came through. In an instant, she abandoned her question, answering the call as she walked out. Damien had seen the name on the screen, he knew where she was going. After the door closed, he tossed everything into the trash. Moments later, his phone rang, it was Ariana's assistant. Mr. Cross, you need to come to Midnight Lounge right away. Ms. Vale's in trouble. The assistant, usually composed, sounded rattled, and Damien's brows drew together. He caught a cab and, en route, looked up the place, a racing club. Wasn't Ariana meeting Ethan? How had she ended up here? When he arrived and saw the woman facing Ariana, it clicked immediately. Lena, Ethan's old college girlfriend. She'd been wild back then, addicted to drinking, smoking, brawling, and street racing. Damien had heard stories of how she'd occasionally tried to hook back up with Ethan after they broke up. It seemed she'd fallen on hard times, and come crawling back to stir up trouble again. And the truth was, Damien's guess hadn't been far off. Lena tossed a set of racing leathers at Ariana's feet. Ethan doesn't like a good little girl like you. He craves danger and adrenaline. If you're so set on protecting him, race me. Loser stays out of his life, forever. Ariana bent, picked up the gear, her expression ice cold. Deal. The declaration sent her friends into a frenzy. She's been racing for years. You've never even set foot on a track, you can't possibly win. Don't throw your life away over this. Exactly. You're married now, Ariana. No need to risk yourself for Ethan. What about Damien if something happens to you? But Ariana seemed deaf to their voices. She didn't even register Damien's name, only turning to look at Ethan with soft, steady resolve. I won't lose. Whatever thrill he wants, I can give it. The quiet certainty in her voice made Damien's chest tighten, his hand curling into a fist. Spotting him, a few of her friends hurried over, urging him to talk sense into her, even pushing him toward the prep room. The door loomed just ahead, his pulse pounding. He didn't know the first thing about racing, but he knew Ariana had no chance. Going up against a professional on a real track could mean she wouldn't walk away alive. He'd already resolved to let her go, but to watch her walk toward death? That he couldn't do. After a long moment of wrestling with himself, he reached for the door. It swung open before he could touch it. Ethan stepped out, that knowing, needling smile tugging at his lips. Here to talk her out of it? Don't waste your time. Ariana won't listen to you. Then his tone shifted, laced with pride. Do you even know how much she loves me? Once, on a whim, I told her I wanted to run away. She didn't hesitate, just got on the plane with me. When they dragged her back, she'd rather take her parents' wrath than give me up. In high school, every time someone confessed to me, she'd force them to transfer or drop out. She's fought for me, literally, ending up in the hospital covered in blood. To her, you're just the consolation prize. Why would she give me up because you asked? The naked arrogance in his gaze was a blade, and Damien felt the cut deep in his chest. She loves you so much, what about you? Damien's voice was low, controlled. If you've chosen to be with her, then why, knowing she's bound to lose and could even be killed, don't you stop her? Ethan's expression twisted into a mocking grin, as if Damien had told the funniest joke. Why would I stop her? Don't you think it's thrilling to watch a woman abandon her limits and risk everything for you? If I've decided she's mine, then I want proof that she loves me enough to give up her life. This is the perfect test. Of course you wouldn't understand. Ariana would never go that far for you. Each word landed like a stone, dragging Damien's heart lower, grinding pain through his chest. His throat filled with 100 retorts, but none made it past his lips. Ethan, watching him, took his phone and dialed Ariana. If you still can't let go, I'll prove it again. Call her. Tell her you've been in a car accident, that you're in surgery. Let's see if she walks away from the race for you. The ringing echoed down the hall. Then Ariana's voice, cool, distracted. I'm in a meeting. Whatever it is, we'll talk when I get back. She hung up before Damien could say a word. Staring at the darkened screen, his raised hand fell to his side. A faint, almost peaceful smile touched his lips. You win. Again. On the twisting, looping track, two race cars battled for the lead, trading positions in a blur of speed. From the stands, Damien kept his eyes on the massive screens, watching the speed readouts shift. Ariana's car stayed near top speed, yet she couldn't shake Lena, whose pace rose and fell, smooth and deliberate. Even to the untrained eye, it was obvious Lena was toying with her, baiting her, every maneuver a calculated taunt. Ariana didn't so much as glance at her, hammering down the accelerator in the final lap. But even with everything she had, she couldn't close the widening gap between them. Lena, adding insult, swung wide on every curve, deliberately tightening the distance just to humiliate her. The crowd sighed, resignation in their voices. Ariana was finished. Damien rose, slinging his bag over his shoulder, ready to leave. A shrill, panicked scream erupted behind him. Damien turned, just in time to see Ariana's black race car hurl itself at Lena's in the final curve, ramming it with reckless force. In an instant, the white sports car swerved violently to avoid the collision, fishtailing off the track. Ariana seized the opening, flooring the accelerator and shooting past the finish line. The cost was steep, her car couldn't slow in time, slamming head-on into the barrier. The frame skidded, flipped onto its side. The hood was split, flames licking upward, though the chassis held. The crowd gasped as one. No one had expected Ariana to take a victory with such a suicidal move. Even Ethan, who had grown bored, shouted her name and ran onto the track. When she spotted him, Ariana, blood streaking her temple, stumbled from the wreckage. She took his arm, leading him straight to Lena's stalled car, and lifted a hand in the victor's salute. You lost. From now on, you never come near Ethan again. In 9 years of knowing her, she had always been poised, self-contained, gentle in her resolve. This was the first time Damien had seen her fierce, triumphant, razor-edged. It would also be the last. In the roar of cheers, Damien turned away and walked out. This time, there was nothing left to hold him. The next day, Ariana still didn't return home. She sent a message, she'd be on a business trip for a week. Moments later, Ethan sent a photo, Ariana at a table with him and several friends, a celebration feast spread out before them. Ariana says the win felt incredible. We're going traveling to celebrate. Damien replied with a single word, good. While she was away, he finished packing. He made a meticulous travel plan, then booked a flight to Miami. When the airline called to confirm, he repeated it carefully. Yes, 1 week from now. Flight? Where are you going? The voice made him turn. Ariana, standing in the doorway, returned without his noticing. He avoided her questioning gaze, ended the call, and answered plainly. Going back to Miami to see my parents. Ariana nodded without pressing further, producing a neatly wrapped gift. You said you didn't want clothes or designer accessories anymore, so this time I picked a men's fragrance. See if you like it. Damien unwrapped it, lifted it for a token sniff, then set it aside. I like it. The flatness of his tone caught her off guard. She stepped forward, slipping her arms lightly around him, concern in her voice. What's going on with you lately? I've been gone all week and you didn't send me a single message. Are you upset? It surprised him she'd notice, while she'd been with Ethan, no less. But then he thought of the past, when he'd share every little thing with her, a flower in bloom, some scrap of gossip. 3 years of constant updates from someone she didn't love, anyone would notice when it suddenly stopped. With that in mind, it didn't seem strange she had. When he stayed silent, Ariana assumed he really was upset. She rose on her toes, moving in to kiss him. Damien, uncharacteristically, pushed her away and headed for the bathroom. I'm not feeling well tonight. Maybe another time. She stood there, watching his back disappear into the doorway, momentarily stunned. Damien's gaze lingered on the flowers and candles, a fragile flicker of hope still in his chest, until the door burst open. Ethan strode in with a crowd, flashes popping as someone snapped photos in rapid succession. So? Enjoying the date? I planned every bit of it, quite the surprise, isn't it? Feels good, right? The words froze Damien where he sat, locking that fragile hope into something brittle and cold. He turned to Ariana, asked again, his voice now unsteady. Did you arrange them? She didn't catch the tremor, simply shook her head and smiled toward Ethan. No. It was his idea. Why? Ethan's grin widened. Of course. Ariana told me she bailed on your anniversary, so I came up with this: restaurant, flowers, candles, menu, fireworks, my recommendations, every one. Guaranteed to make tonight unforgettable. Oh, and the cologne, did you get it? Took me ages to pick. Do you like it? And just like that, Damien understood, every detail he'd thought might be hers had been Ethan's all along. Damien's chest tightened as old memories crashed back, college days when Ethan had choreographed every romantic move Ariana ever made toward him. The flowers, the amusement park dates, the scheduled goodnight messages, she had carried them out like a machine following instructions, even her confession stiff and unnatural. Hearing the chorus of praise around Ethan now, that same helplessness welled up inside him. This whole elaborate evening was just another reminder, no matter how much time had passed, the beginning, the end, even the course of his relationship with Ariana had never truly been in his hands. From start to finish, Ethan had been the one in control. And Ariana had embraced it without protest. Seeing Ethan surrounded by admirers, Damien could take no more. He rose and started for the stairs. Halfway down, Ethan's voice called after him. What's wrong? Not impressed? Come on, ending your relationship with such a romantic dinner will be a highlight in your life story. Here, keep these photos as a memento. Damien glanced down at the pictures Ethan handed him. Ariana stood with fireworks exploding in a heart shape behind her, her arm looped through Damien's. To anyone else, it might have looked intimate. But Damien saw what the camera hadn't meant to catch, her gaze, not on him, but angled toward where Ethan had been standing. He didn't take the photos. Instead, he met Ethan's eyes, exhaustion edging his voice. I've already signed the divorce papers. I was going to let her go to you. Does this really amuse you? Ethan grinned. Not amused? I thought you'd be touched. But if you don't like it, fine, we won't play anymore. Not that there'll be another chance. He turned to leave, still smirking, just as the overhead light above them gave a sudden, ominous shudder. The crystal chandelier, dozens of kilos of glass and metal, came crashing down toward them. Instinct made Damien lift his arms to shield his head, but before he could react further, Ariana threw herself forward. The impact drove him to the floor, searing pain exploding through his wrist, shoulder, and spine. Tears sprang to his eyes unbidden, a guttural groan breaking from his throat. Through the haze, he saw Ethan kneel, not to him, but to Ariana, cradling her bloody form. "You're so foolish. Why, no matter what danger I'm in, do you appear first to protect me? Why do you cling to me, refusing to be driven away?" "Because of love," Damien answered silently for her. His vision swam, the world tilted. At last, darkness claimed him. When he woke, Ethan was there, setting a cream-colored envelope on the table. 6 days from now, your divorce cooling-off period ends. It's also Ariana's birthday. I'll confess to her that day. She'll love the surprise. She's always wanted me. He added, almost casually, she's got a mild concussion. I'll take care of her. If you want to spend these last days near her, I can move you to the room next door. Damien closed his eyes, his voice flat. No need. She wants to see you, not me. And I don't want to see her. Ethan seemed satisfied, nodding as he left. Over the next few days, Ariana called and messaged a handful of times. Damien didn't respond. On the day of his discharge, he left the hospital and went directly to the courthouse with the attorney Ethan had hired for her. Together, they filed the final divorce decree. Ariana knew nothing, she'd sign anything Ethan handed her without a glance. Back home, Damien placed the decree, both copies signed, in a gift box. He tied the ribbon himself, the bow crisp and neat. His voice carried through the grand hall, steady and deliberate. Today is a special day, not only Ariana's birthday, but also the day I want to make something clear in front of everyone here. The crowd quieted, attention shifting toward the stage. Ethan's gaze locked onto Ariana, a smile playing at his lips. Ariana, we've known each other for years. You've been there for me through everything, protecting me, caring for me, even when it wasn't easy. I've prepared something tonight, something I hope will stay with you forever. He gestured toward the massive LED screen behind him. The lights dimmed, and the first image appeared, photos and video clips of Ariana over the years, many of them candid, most taken with Ethan at her side. Laughter, road trips, candlelit dinners, sunsets on the beach, all moments that told one story, her life intertwined with his. Gasps and murmurs spread through the guests as the montage played on. The narrative was obvious, intentional. And Ethan, basking in the reaction, waited for the perfect moment to deliver his next line. The warm, golden lights bathed Ethan as though the stage itself were crowning him. A faint breeze from somewhere in the hall stirred his hair, lending him an almost saintly air. He kept his gaze fixed on Ariana, voice low but resonant. Today's a good day, your birthday, and I have 2 pieces of good news. First, congratulations on your divorce. It's time to say goodbye to the past and embrace a new future. Second, here in front of everyone, I'm confessing my feelings for you. Ariana, you've loved me for so many years, and I've been selfish, letting you give without giving back. But today I've realized, I want to be with you, forever. The crowd erupted in applause. Ethan stepped closer, still holding the mic, his eyes soft and intent. All this time, you've been the warmth in my life, a quiet sun that never left my side. Every moment with you is like a star in my sky. I thought that warmth was something I deserved, until now, when I see it's the harbor you built for me with your heart. Ariana's mind was a blank. She didn't move as he reached her, gently taking her hand. I've seen countless views, he continued, but none as beautiful as what I see in your eyes. I've heard countless words, but none as comforting as your voice. From now on, I don't want you trailing behind me. I want to walk beside you through every season, see every horizon. Will you be part of every moment in my future? He smiled wider. Damien has divorced you. You've been by my side no matter what, and I know you truly love me. Now, I don't want you chasing me anymore, because I've decided to choose you. This surprise, do you like it? It's my birthday gift to you. Please, be with me. Her thoughts tangled, questions clawing for space, but the packed hall and hundreds of watching eyes left no room to voice them. Ariana? Ethan prompted, mistaking her stillness for being overwhelmed with joy. She steadied herself, forced a bright smile. Thank you for all this. I'm very touched. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no, and for everyone present, who knew the years Ariana had spent orbiting Ethan, it was enough. They took it as confirmation. The two had simply been waiting for her divorce to make their relationship official. The grand hall had long emptied, leaving behind the faint echo of music and the lingering scent of champagne. Ethan's arm had been draped possessively around Ariana's waist all night, and by the time they left, he was flushed with drink, smiling loosely. You'd better treat me even better from now on, or I'll leave you, he slurred, the boyish challenge in his tone masking the drunken sincerity. It was the culmination of years. Her moonlight finally lowered into her hands, whispering affection in the haze of alcohol. Driving him home, Ariana pushed every other thought aside. She stayed until he was asleep, then returned to the house she shared with Damien. The place was dark, empty. That was when she remembered, Damien had said he was flying back to Miami. But in her mind, Damien wasn't someone who could walk away from her. She knew how deeply he loved her. Just as she had chased Ethan for years, Damien had always been chasing her. She remembered how, that very morning, he'd still handed her a birthday gift before leaving. Surely he was just sulking, waiting for her to coax him. Yes, she'd neglected him lately because of Ethan, but once Damien came back, she'd make it up to him. She picked up her phone and called, not caring how late it was. The line rang and rang. No answer. Frowning, she sent him a message, only for the notification to flash, message sent, but delivery refused by recipient. Her irritation flared. So he'd decided to disappear instead of explaining? What, was he expecting her to chase after him now? The garage, a velvet blue gift box cradled in her hands. Her fingers lingered on its surface, brushing over the smooth wrapping. She couldn't guess what it was. Damien had never bothered with elaborate packaging before. Every other gift he'd given her had been handed over plainly. The effort this time stirred a faint flicker of curiosity. Her phone buzzed sharply on the table. The name flashing on the screen, Ethan, pierced through the room's warm glow like a needle. Ariana, where are you? His voice over the line was slightly slurred, thick with sleep and the remnants of alcohol. I'm at home. What's wrong? The sound of him softened her tone, her fingers stilling on the ribbon. I don't feel well. Why aren't you here with me? Without a second thought, Ariana let go of the box and reached for her coat, tucking her phone between shoulder and ear. Keys in hand, she was already halfway to the door. I'll be there in a minute. Just hang on. By the time she reached Ethan's place, dawn was brushing pale light over the streets. She spent the rest of the night tending to him, coaxing him back to sleep. Exhaustion pressed in heavy, and she finally curled up on the couch, still in her clothes. When she woke, afternoon sunlight was spilling across the room. Ethan emerged from the bathroom in pajamas, steam trailing after him. Without a word, he sat beside her and handed over a towel. Dry my hair for me. Startled from her haze, Ariana took the towel, gently blotting the damp strands until they were merely damp, then got up to fetch the hairdryer. She stood behind him, working the warm air through his hair until it lay smooth. What you said at the party last night, she began, only to have him cut her off before she could finish. That wasn't spur of the moment, he said with a half smile. I'm your boyfriend now. So, what do you want to do with your boyfriend? He caught her hand, pressing it deliberately to the hard lines of his abdomen, his voice low and suggestive. That's not what I meant, she said, pulling back slightly. I'm asking, when did I divorce Damien? And why can't I get in touch with him? Ethan's expression cooled. I thought you'd be too busy enjoying the fact that we're finally together to care about him. Damien was just your fallback when I wasn't ready. Now that you have me, why waste your energy on someone who doesn't matter? There was a faint bite in his tone, as though the question itself offended him. A faint, unplaceable unease slid through Ariana at Ethan's words. How was I supposed to know? He sent me a message saying you two were divorced, showed me the decree, even. I figured you were just desperate to be with me, so you rushed it through. Yesterday was your birthday and he didn't even show, yet you're still thinking about him. Divorce decree? You're telling me I divorced him? Ariana's shock was sharp and raw. Just like that, she'd been informed she was divorced, along with the implication that it was somehow her fault. It wasn't as though she felt nothing for Damien. For years, every time she'd stumbled chasing Ethan, it had been Damien who stayed by her side. She'd only spent more time with Ethan lately because he was newly back in the States, still finding his footing. And now Damien wanted a divorce? Seeing her expression darken, Ethan didn't hesitate to lay the blame entirely at Damien's feet. He threatened me. Said if I didn't help him, he'd spread rumors that I was the other man in your marriage, trash my name, ruin me. He actually said that? Ariana's disbelief was genuine. The Damien she knew was soft-spoken, measured, the kind of man who navigated every interaction with quiet courtesy. She couldn't picture him doing something so petty. You don't believe me? Ethan's eyes flashed. He shot her a sharp look, then turned his back, silent and sulking. Ariana softened her voice, trying to smooth over the tension. It's not that I don't believe you. I just never thought he'd treat you like that. Weren't you two college roommates? Good friends? He was never my friend. He was jealous of me from the start. If he hadn't told me he liked you, and pushed me toward Lena, I never would have introduced you to him. It was him who introduced you to Lena? Ariana's focus had already shifted, led neatly away from her original question. With his scheme taking root, Ethan pressed the advantage, determined to grind down whatever fondness Ariana still harbored for Damien. They had been in each other's lives for years. Even if she'd always chased Ethan, there was bound to be some complicated sentiment for the man who had quietly stood beside her. Otherwise, why would she still think of Damien even after learning about the divorce? Why hesitate in the face of Ethan's confession? He wouldn't allow it. He was the one who brought Lena into my life, Ethan continued smoothly, and then he pushed me to introduce you to him, told me to play matchmaker. Said if I didn't, he'd get Lena to dump me. Back then, I was blind enough to fall for it, couldn't even see my own heart clearly. Sunlight lay across the city of Mapleford like strands of gold, delicate and warm. Fresh from a failed marriage and a quiet visit to his parents in Miami, Damien set foot in this serene, almost dreamlike place. The city greeted him with its bright blooms and gentle warmth, a welcome he hadn't felt in years. For so long, his life had revolved around Ariana. It had been ages since he'd traveled simply for himself. The divorce gave him the perfect reason to finally breathe, to rediscover the parts of his life that weren't bound to someone else's shadow. His first stop was Mapleford. When they'd been together, Damien had told Ariana countless times that he wanted to come here, stroll the streets hand in hand, let the breeze off Moonlake brush over them. She'd always said she was too busy, never once agreeing. Only at a college reunion had he learned the truth. All those times she claimed to be tied up with work, she'd been flying overseas to spend time with Ethan. Now, free of that weight, Damien wandered at his own pace, letting his mind dissolve into the beauty around him. Moonlake lay ahead like a vast mirror set into the land, its water so clear that the sunlight shattered across it in rippling diamonds. He rented a bicycle and rode the shoreline path, the wind carrying the lake's cool scent to his face. Closing his eyes, he breathed it in, feeling the stillness of nature seep into his bones, as though the mountains, the water, and he were part of the same quiet whole. He drew a deep breath, willing the crisp air to clear the remnants of old grief. How foolish it had been to give up years of freedom for someone who would never turn her gaze from another man, to stay shut away in a house waiting for love that was never coming back. He sat alone on a bench by the lake, watching the small boats drift lazily over the waves until they rocked into stillness, like his own restless heart, which, in time, would find its calm. Without realizing, the day slid into evening. The sunset flared across the horizon, painting the clouds in brilliant hues. Damien walked the sandy edge of the lake, the golden light turning each grain beneath his feet into a fleck of fire. His shadow stretched long behind him, as if marking the beginning of a new chapter fate had just set in motion. Ariana and Ethan belonged to the past now. The memories felt shrouded in a thin veil, hazy and distant. The streets of Mapleford were alive with music and color. Stalls brimmed with handmade crafts, each more intricate than the last. In the town square, people danced in circles, laughter spilling as freely as the music. Damien found himself smiling, his body swaying subtly to the rhythm. Night fell, and the city lit up like a constellation. The reflections in the lake shimmered and broke against the water's surface, waves of light rolling out into the dark. Damien sat in a small tavern by the lake, letting the mellow notes of a local ballad drift through him as he sipped a glass of regional wine. A warm ease settled over him, full, content, and, for once, untouched by thoughts of Ariana or Ethan. That, he decided, was a good sign. A slight buzz from the alcohol nudged him into motion. He stepped out into the night air, hoping a walk would clear his head. By the time he reached the low wall of a small courtyard, a fine rain had begun to fall. Slender drops swept across the dark eaves, and Damien leaned against the weathered wooden doorframe. The lanterns along the cobblestone street wavered in his vision, their light blurred to halos by the drink in his veins. From around the corner, an amber wall lamp flicked on, throwing a warm glow across a half-open gate tangled with rose vines. Without thinking, he pushed it gently and stepped inside. "Damien, do you need a towel?" The voice was soft, feminine, catching him off guard enough to make him step back. A hand, pale and elegant, reached out to him. Inside the courtyard stood a woman, striking, with an unhurried grace. "How do you know my name?" He tightened his grip on the wet cashmere draped over his shoulders. A breeze stirred her hair. Clara coughed lightly, pushing herself upright. The sleeve of her sweater slipped back to reveal a wrist so slender the faint blue veins showed beneath the skin. "Freshman welcome party," she said, her tone shy but steady. "I saw you play guitar. You were unforgettable." Her fingers curled into the hem of her sweater, and a blush crept across the tips of her ears. Only then did Damien notice how flushed they were. Rain dripped from the wisteria overhead, tapping softly against the flagstones. Under the night sky, Clara was disarmingly alluring. He found himself accepting the towel from her hand and following her inside. It wasn't until he was seated in her living room that Damien realized the impropriety, alone, in a stranger's home, in a city that wasn't his, deep into the night. The air between them carried an unspoken charge. Damien, suddenly conscious of it, reached for the safety of small talk. "You went to my university?" "I was in a car accident my junior year," she said, as if offering an explanation. "Ever since, I come here around this time each year to rest." Noticing his awkwardness, Clara spoke more, her voice easy, filling the quiet. "A car accident?" Damien thought, no wonder there was a fragile edge to her. "Yes. Back then." She caught the flicker of interest in his eyes and brightened. Damien might not remember her, but she had never let go of the memory of him. She had followed, silently, from afar, until the day she learned he was in love, engaged, and then married. Only then had she forced herself to stop looking. After walking Damien home, Clara immediately pulled out her phone and called her assistant, instructing him to find out why Damien had come to Mapleford alone. Back in her room, sleep refused to come. The composure she'd worn in front of Damien earlier was nowhere to be found. She had to work hard just to steady her heartbeat, afraid its wild rhythm might have startled him if he'd noticed. A notification chimed. Her assistant's message popped up on the screen, and as Clara read it, an involuntary smile curved her lips. Heard that a few days ago, at Ariana's birthday party, her first love, Ethan, announced in front of everyone that she and Mr. Cross were divorced, and confessed to her on the spot. I'll have more details tomorrow. He was divorced. Her chance had come. It was, without question, the best news she'd had in a long while. That night, Damien dreamed for the first time in ages, back to a time before Ariana, back in college. He was in the cafeteria when his meal card slipped from his pocket, and his phone was dead. In the awkward scramble, a beautiful hand appeared, swiping her own card to pay for his food. Long, pale fingers, knuckles sharply defined, exactly the type he'd always admired. Damien had always been a little obsessed with hands, and these had made him pause in pure admiration. By the time he turned, ready to thank her, he caught only the sight of her walking away. When he woke, the image that came to mind was Clara's hand offering him a towel the night before. Realizing where his thoughts had wandered, Damien felt his face warm. Ridiculous. He gave his cheeks a brisk slap, as if he could shake the stray images loose. Stepping outside, he breathed in the heady scent of flowers under a sky polished to a perfect blue. The streets were still quiet, and peace seeped into him with every step. Small world. He looked up to find Clara approaching, her smile easy. The coincidence made his cheeks heat again. He'd just been thinking about her this morning, and here she was. Small world. Out shopping too, he said, instantly realizing how foolish the question sounded. Retracting it wasn't an option now, so he could only give a sheepish smile. Emicham. But after only a few words, Damien excused himself and walked on. Clara stood there, feeling a twinge of defeat. Later, when Damien spotted her walking toward him yet again, he found the pattern almost funny. 3, 2, 1. Small world. Right on cue, Clara's greeting landed. Not so small, we've run into each other 10 times today. Her smile faltered, and for the first time, Clara was the one left standing awkwardly in place. ChatGPT. Why don't we walk together? Damien said, finding something endearing in Clara's wide-eyed look. The invitation eased the awkwardness between them. Sure, she replied, silently congratulating herself. The late-night research she'd done had paid off. The shy, slightly flustered persona, with just enough transparency for her little schemes to be obvious, was proving useful. All it required was swallowing her embarrassment. With Clara at his side, Damien found the day unexpectedly pleasant. She more than made up for the lack of photos he'd managed to take in recent days, happily stepping into the role of photographer. And Clara, for her part, was content simply to have spent an entire day with the man she had admired from afar for years. In Snow City, Ariana listened to Ethan detail all the grievances he'd suffered at Damien's hands, his tone edged with hurt. Wanting to lift his spirits, she decided to surprise him. After days of working late to clear her schedule, she freed up an entire month for a trip with Ethan. Ethan's delight was clear. He invited her over for dinner, and they agreed she would leave from his place the next morning. It had been some time since Ariana had returned to the home she'd once shared with Damien, but now, intending to pack, she finally stepped through the door. The gift box in the living room caught her eye, the one she'd left unopened. She tore it open at last, only to find inside a divorce decree and the final judgment. A wonderful birthday present, indeed. Her expression soured. In the bedroom, she found that every trace of Damien's presence had vanished. Half the closet stood empty, the photo from the nightstand was gone, and even the toiletries in the bathroom had disappeared. She thought back to when she'd caught him packing weeks before, brushing off her questions with casual indifference. The sight of those legal documents deepened her irritation. Damien, really? All because she'd been spending more time with Ethan? Did he think he could just walk away? Had all those years of intense devotion been nothing but an act? Or was Ethan right, that Damien was always this insincere? Was your love really this shallow? Yet beneath the heat of her anger, something else stirred, an inexplicable tightness in her chest that made her breath hitch. She told herself, over and over, that she'd always loved Ethan. That Damien had only ever been a backup. She pushed the feeling down. That night over dinner, her mood soured further, and she drank heavily. Ethan needed only the smallest nudge to lead her into his arms. Later, lying in bed with him asleep against her, Ariana felt the satisfaction of finally having the man she'd chased for so long. And yet, a hollow ache persisted. In the back of her mind, Damien's shadow kept flickering, unbidden. The morning sun glinted on the cobblestones, still damp with dew. Clara held Damien's wool shawl in her arms, leaning in to straighten the silver bracelet that had slipped askew on his wrist. The sharp crash of breaking glass cut through the quiet. Damien? The scent hit him first, cedar and spilled beer, and then her voice, unmistakable. Ariana stood a few yards away, her left hand looped through Ethan's arm as they strolled the street together. He turned at the sound, and in that instant, the harm he'd thought dulled by time came rushing back, vivid and raw, as if the wounds had only been made yesterday. The ache from the accident surged in his bones, phantom pain clawing through healed flesh, old scars burning as though torn open anew. His gaze dropped to her hand, her ring finger glinted with a pristine platinum couple's band. The sight hit harder than the crash had. He remembered their own marriage, how she had gone years without ever wearing a wedding ring. She hadn't refused because she disliked jewelry, she had refused because she hadn't wanted his. And she had never been too busy to travel, she had only been too busy to travel with him. Fighting the urge to turn and walk away, Damien forced himself to stand still, his tone deliberately neutral. Something you need? Clara's hand came to rest lightly on his trembling shoulder. The simple gesture made Ariana's pupils tighten. Gone for a month, and you've already learned how to find yourself a mistress, she said coldly, tugging Ethan along until they stood directly in front of them. See an old friend and don't even say hello? She'd chosen the word mistress on purpose, to insult Clara, and to belittle Damien by extension. I don't think that word fits, Clara replied with a soft laugh, her fingertip brushing over the silver bracelet at Damien's wrist, the one she had bought for him the night before. After all, you're divorced now, aren't you? The moment she'd recognized Ariana, Clara's mind had flashed back to the file her assistant had sent her. Every detail in it had stirred her anger, making her want to walk right up to this woman and hit her. Who leaves their husband in danger to run back to an old flame? Before, she'd had no place to interfere. But now Damien was divorced, and Ariana had no right to come here acting superior. Damien's eyes lifted to the couple before him, picture perfect in their closeness. The woman who once claimed shopping was exhausting now walked the streets willingly with Ethan, step for step. I don't acknowledge the divorce. It doesn't count, Ariana snapped, stung by hearing another woman mention it. Already found yourself a new girlfriend, huh? Aren't you going to introduce us? Ethan finally spoke up, his gaze lingering on Clara. She was every bit as poised as Ariana, too much so for his liking. How could someone he considered a loser deserve that? Do we really know each other that well? Damien said evenly, not interested in small talk with either of them. The judgment is on paper, plain as day, he added, his voice cooling. It's not undone just because you say so. Use your head. He'd had enough of swallowing insults when he was with her. The marriage was over, there was no reason to keep enduring them. Good moods ruined. What a waste. Ariana froze at his blunt dismissal. When did you get like this? Rude. Crude. Before, I wasn't sure about the things Ethan told me, Ariana said sharply. But seeing you like this now, I believe it, you must have given him a hard time. I bullied him. Damien's laugh was short and disbelieving. Ethan, did I bully you? Put on the spot, Ethan froze. He couldn't afford to face Damien head-on, not when the accusations he'd made were pure invention. His expression flickered, then he turned to Ariana with a meek air. Let's go. Damien clearly doesn't want us here. And then, to Clara, he added with false graciousness, Miss, Damien's temper isn't the best. Please, be patient with him. I'm counting on you. It was a move calculated to needle Damien, a last little twist of the knife under the guise of being a concerned friend. You're too kind-hearted, Ariana murmured, feeling a swell of sympathy for Ethan's supposed generosity. Darling, do you smell that? Clara asked suddenly, turning to Damien. It's awful. Let's get out of here. Yeah, Damien replied, catching on immediately. Too strong. Let's go. You. Ethan nearly jumped, his composure cracking. He had always lorded over Damien, always been the one in control. When had Damien ever put him in his place like this? Ariana's face tightened as she watched them walk away together, close enough to touch. She said nothing, never noticed the flash of venom that crossed Ethan's eyes. Damien in love with her? Impossible that he'd let go so easily. No, he couldn't have. Once they'd put distance between themselves and the two people he least wanted to see, Damien let his arm fall from Clara's waist. Thanks, for back there, he said, his voice a little awkward. Clara felt a pang of disappointment at the space between them. She would have to keep working at this. It's nothing. But inside, seeing Ariana had sparked something fierce in her. She didn't want to keep this slow, careful pace anymore, she wanted a place at Damien's side that no one could question. Damien, He wasn't naive. In the time they'd spent together, he'd felt the truth of her feelings for him. No one is that good to another person for no reason. He'd thought, at first, that if it ever came to this, he would turn her down outright. But Clara had never said anything directly, always skirting the edges with light teasing, so he'd let it be. And over these past days, he'd found it harder and harder to be as firm as he once imagined. It wasn't that he felt nothing for her. He did. But it was all happening too fast. He wanted to take his time, to move forward slowly. That was why he'd let Clara weave herself into his life step by cautious step. But he wasn't ready, not yet. So when she began, he cut in. Let's go eat, We've been walking all day. I'm starving. The deliberate change of subject stung, but Clara wasn't the type to drag things out once she'd made up her mind. She'd already lost years with him, she wasn't willing to lose more. Damien, she said, steady now, I like you. Her words stopped him cold. He stood there, silent for a long moment. I've liked you since the freshman welcome party, she continued. I went that night just to meet you. But I'd just taken over my family's business, and I was buried in work. By the time I came up for air, there was already someone walking beside you. I thought, college relationships don't last. I told myself I could wait. But then you accepted her proposal, and the way you looked at her, that love in your eyes, it made me back away. I decided it was enough just to know you were happy. After you married, I stopped following your life altogether. Her breath caught, but she pushed on. Then you appeared in my world again. And when I found out you were divorced, I can't describe how happy I was. So I stayed close, pretended not to notice when you tried to keep your distance, and kept finding reasons to be with you. At first, I thought it would be enough to be your friend, to have even a little space in your life. But people are greedy, Damien. Now I want more. I don't just want to stand beside you as a friend. Her eyes met his, unflinching. I want the place of someone with you. Damien, I like you. I love you. Clara had never truly meant to settle for just friends. Even knowing Damien was married, she hadn't let go. In fact, she'd long been plotting how to break them apart. If not for the lingering effects of her accident, she might have acted sooner. Now Ethan's reappearance had done the work for her, and in her mind, it was as if fate itself had stepped in on her behalf. Yes, she was taking advantage of a man still raw from a divorce, but so what? Damien's long silence made her uneasy. If he says no, she thought darkly, I could always keep him close by force, make sure I'm the only one he sees. I didn't know you liked me that early, Damien said at last, his voice tinged with surprise, and something softer. The thought that, while he'd been chasing Ariana, someone else had been quietly watching over him, it shook him more than he expected. Hearing the catch in his voice, Clara's heart clenched. She drew him into her arms, and for a moment, all the shadowed plans in her head dissolved. Forget it, she told herself. If he's happy, I can be patient. I'll admit I like you, Damien murmured, but I've just come out of a failed marriage. I'm afraid of stepping into something new. Can you understand that? The words lit something fierce in her, he likes me. The qualifier, a little, was discarded instantly in her mind. A spark was enough, she could make it grow into a flame. That's fine, she said, smiling. All I need is for you to stay where you are and not turn away, just let me walk toward you. Her hands, warm as if with fever, closed over his cold fingers, and Damien could almost hear, deep in his chest, the shattering roar of ice breaking apart. His phone buzzed suddenly, screen lighting with a cascade of missed calls from unknown numbers. He reached out and, without hesitation, powered it off. The realization that she didn't hold the same weight in Damien's world left Ariana simmering with irritation, a feeling that lingered all the way back to where she and Ethan were staying. Later, lying in bed, her mind kept circling back to their brief encounter on the street. Damien hadn't been the same as he was with her. No, he was different now. Brighter. Stronger. The kind of man whose presence drew the eye like sunlight breaking over water. She hated to admit it, but he looked better, happier, than he ever had at her side. She thought about how she'd borrowed a passerby's phone earlier, dialing his number more than a dozen times without getting through. The memory sat heavy in her chest. Damien. His name stayed with her all night, even in Ethan's company. And Ethan, for all his easy smiles, found his own thoughts drifting to the woman at Damien's side. She carried herself like someone born to elegance, her poise eclipsing even Ariana's. Neither of them noticed the other's half-hearted attention, each was too preoccupied with someone else. In the warm, rose-tinted bubble of Damien's world, things felt entirely different. Clara pressed forward with confidence, unwilling to give him the chance to retreat again. And Damien, still shy from the intensity of the past days, found himself going along with her pace. It wasn't until he was back at his place that a thought struck him, he'd never told Clara about the divorce. So how had she known? Damien believed in speaking things out rather than stewing alone, so he called her directly. What's wrong? Clara answered, her voice light, clearly pleased to hear from him. I never told you I was divorced, Damien said bluntly. How did you know? Clara, who'd been certain she'd covered her tracks, felt a prickle of unease. She forced a light tone. Wait for me, Damien, I'll come over. While he waited, Damien busied himself tidying the room. After all, first impressions mattered, and for something that felt newly begun, image was still important. Damien hadn't been waiting long before a knock came at his door. He opened it to let Clara in, expecting her explanation. I'm sorry, Damien, she began, eyes soft. That first day I saw you here alone, I worried about you. I asked around, and someone told me you were divorced. Her tone turned almost pleading. Please don't be mad, okay? She looked up at him, feigning a kind of helpless sweetness she'd only just learned online, hoping it might work on him. I'm not angry, Damien said honestly. It just crossed my mind, you already knew I'd just gotten divorced. Seeing her put on that pitiful act, he felt his irritation melt. In truth, he hadn't been upset in the first place. "I know I'm taking advantage of you when you're vulnerable," Clara rushed to interrupt, "but I like you too much to care." She didn't want to hear him belittle himself, because to her, Damien was already the best there was. "In love," she went on, "I have nothing and know nothing. Maybe I wasn't the first person to arrive at your station, but you're the only one for me. You're the most important person in my life, Damien. No matter what kind of days you face, I'll live them with you. No matter where you go, I'll be by your side. Even if you told me to my face, I don't love you, I don't want you, it wouldn't make me leave." Her confession struck him again, the rawness of it sinking deep. Few people could face such intensity without being moved, and Damien let go of any thought of reproaching her curiosity. Instead, he stepped forward and wrapped her in a quiet embrace, a wordless answer. That long, sleepless night, every drifting thought and every imagined sheep in Clara's head turned into Damien's face. When she woke, memories of their mutual confession lit her features with an irrepressible smile. She hurried through her morning routine, eager to see him. Opening her door, she found him already there, standing on the threshold with a bouquet of roses in his arms. The fragrance hit her first, but even the most perfect blooms couldn't match the smile on his face. "Clara, good morning," he said. "I thought about you all night. I can't respond to your love as quickly or as intensely as you've given it to me, but since I've decided to be with you, I'll put my whole heart into it. I'll do my best to make sure you feel the same love from me in return." He held her gaze, voice steady. "I hope, in the days ahead, we can walk hand in hand, for the rest of our lives." Damien had spent all morning turning over the right words in his head. But the moment Clara opened her door, they all came tumbling out in a rush, everything he'd meant to say spilling into the space between them. When the last word left his mouth, he ducked his head, suddenly shy, waiting for her response. Silence stretched. When he finally looked up, he found Clara, usually so composed, standing with her eyes rimmed red, as if she might cry. He fumbled for something to say, but the right words wouldn't come. Clara didn't wait for him to find them, she stepped forward, wrapping her arms around his waist. Her voice was low and a little muffled. "Thank you for the flowers. What am I going to do with you? I think I like you even more than I did yesterday." All morning, the sight of Damien standing there with roses in his hands had felt unreal. Only with him pulled close did that dreamlike haze begin to lift. Damien's travels wound down, and he decided to stay with Clara while she continued her recovery. By the time they returned to Snow City, winter had already settled in, bringing with it a heavy snowfall. This ancient yet bustling city had felt the bite of cold even before the snow arrived. Now, the sky was a heavy sheet of gray, pressing low and silent. Bare branches rattled in the wind, stark against the gloom, and the occasional withered leaf spiraled helplessly to the ground. The moment he stepped out of the airport, a sharp gust knifed through Damien's coat, raising goosebumps along his skin. Thankfully, it was only a short walk through the wind and snow before shelter. He had always loved snow. Growing up in Miami, he still remembered the awe of his first winter here, back in his college days, how the world had seemed to hold its breath, hushed except for the faint whisper of flakes drifting down. Each one was different, weaving together into a white, shimmering veil. They blanketed the ground in a thick, soft layer, dusted the trees in crystalline silver until they looked carved from ice, crowned rooftops so that old buildings stood solemn and timeless, like scenes from another century. People on the street buried themselves deeper in their coats, moving quickly to escape the cold. Only those who had never seen snow before lingered to play in it, and Damien was, in his heart, still one of them. After crossing paths with Damien again, Ariana and Ethan's dynamic shifted in ways neither could ignore. It started subtly, an offhand remark at a dinner party when Ethan sulked, expecting her to soothe him. Without thinking, Ariana had said, "Can't you stop being so childish for once? Why can't you be more like Damien, just a little more considerate?" The word seemed to trigger something she couldn't switch off. Where she once found Ethan's lively, impulsive nature charming, she now found it grating. Every flaw stood out in sharper relief when measured against Damien's quiet, steady thoughtfulness. When Ariana traveled for work, Damien would make sure she had everything she needed, neatly packed essentials, small snacks, even pastries she liked, always checking in to see if she was tired. Ethan, on the other hand, would send her off with nothing but demands to bring back armfuls of luxury shoes, treating her more like a personal shopper than a partner. Damien would stay awake no matter how late she came home, waiting just to see her walk through the door. Ethan never waited, and if she came in late, his only request was that she keep the noise down so he could sleep. Over time, Ariana realized that all these irritations had bloomed in the wake of Damien's absence. She no longer saw Ethan's petulance as endearing, instead, it felt selfish, even exhausting. Ethan noticed the shift. Without her constant attention and indulgence, he couldn't maintain his air of cool detachment. He began comparing her to the woman she used to be and resenting the change, suspecting she didn't love him anymore. And then came Lena. She reappeared in Ethan's life, offering him the attention and thrill he no longer received from Ariana. She couldn't give him the comfortable life Ariana provided, but in secret meetings and hidden exchanges, she became a stand-in for what he was missing. Ariana, distracted and increasingly indifferent, didn't notice. She assumed Ethan's quieter behavior meant he was finally learning to behave himself. In truth, her focus had shifted elsewhere, entirely toward the news that Damien was back. Ethan heard it too, and with it came a flood of humiliation, the memory of being put in his place by Damien in Mapleford, and the sting of Ariana's constant comparisons to a man he considered a beaten rival. Now Damien was back, and Ethan's pride demanded retribution. Casually, he mentioned to an old college friend that it had been too long since they'd all gotten together. From there, a class reunion began to take shape, an event Ethan fully intended to turn to his advantage. Damien had no real desire to attend the reunion. The last thing he wanted was another encounter with Ethan, but several classmates kept urging him to come until he couldn't find a polite way to refuse. By the time he arrived, most people were already there, though Ethan was nowhere in sight. Damien was just about to sit with a group of friends he knew when a classmate turned toward him and asked, "Damien, I heard you and Ariana got divorced. Is that true?" The lively room fell abruptly silent. "Yeah, I'm divorced," Damien replied evenly, seizing the moment to confirm it outright and avoid future gossip. "But why? Ariana's such an amazing woman, how could you let her go?" "We weren't compatible," he said simply, unwilling to elaborate. Someone lowered their voice but still made sure everyone could hear, "I heard Ariana's with Ethan now." "Is that why?" Another chimed in, "Come on, if Ethan agreed to be with Ariana, what would that have to do with Damien?" The remark quickly shifted the focus to Ariana's supposed lingering affection for Ethan. Exactly. Everyone knows how much Ariana doted on Ethan. Damien never measured up to that. If it weren't for Ethan playing matchmaker, Damien wouldn't have even had the chance to marry her. Yeah, Damien should be thanking Ethan, really. One by one, they recounted examples of Ariana's indulgence toward Ethan, as if an affair with a married woman was nothing scandalous at all. They spoke without the slightest concern for Damien's dignity, openly listing ways he fell short. Those who felt uneasy about the conversation were drowned out by the chorus. A few glanced at Damien's darkening expression and tried to caution the others to drop it. But one man, catching sight of Damien's face, smirked and asked, "What's wrong, Damien? You're not mad, are you?" "Hey, we're not making anything up, it's all true." What was meant to be a reunion had morphed into something closer to a public trial, with Damien as the accused. If Damien couldn't see the real purpose behind this gathering now, he'd have to be a fool. He was just about to rise and leave when the door opened and Ethan walked in. Smiling broadly, Ethan greeted the room. "Sorry I'm late, everyone. Ariana insisted I put on an extra layer so I wouldn't get cold." Ariana still treats you so well, someone said. We were just talking about you, Damien, and her. Damien, you made it. I was afraid you'd be mad at me and skip it. Why would he be mad at you? That person prompted, playing along. Well, it's all Ariana's fault, Ethan said with a laugh. When I came back, she still treated me the same as before. Damien insisted on divorcing her and put all the blame on me. I do feel bad for him, but what can I do? Ariana loves me, not him. Imagine, being together so long, married for years, and never having Ariana's love. Poor Damien. Inside, hushed whispers spread quickly. If that's really what you came here for, Damien said coolly, then I'm sorry to disappoint you. Ariana's just my ex-wife now, nothing more than a familiar stranger. Why would you think that? I only wanted to smooth things over between us, Ethan said, eyes already misting with self-pity before Damien could finish. The sight of Ethan playing the victim almost made Damien laugh, and he did, softly but audibly. Around them, classmates exchanged puzzled glances, one man crying, the other smirking. Their instinct was to gather around the one in tears. One by one, they moved to console Ethan, treating Damien as if he weren't there at all. Looking at these once familiar faces, Damien felt a wave of estrangement. So easy to manipulate? He thought. Without another word, he stood to leave. At the door, where Clara was supposed to meet him, Ethan caught up. Damien, he murmured as he leaned in close, I'm going to make sure your name rots in this circle. Seeing classmates approaching, he suddenly stumbled backward, flinging himself down the steps as if Damien had pushed him. Ethan. Several people rushed forward, glaring at Damien with undisguised hostility. Accusations flew at once. Just then, Ariana arrived to pick Ethan up. She took in the sight, Damien encircled by angry faces, Ethan being helped to his feet, and didn't bother to ask questions. Why are you always picking fights with Ethan? Apologize. Damien's eyes sharpened. If your eyesight's that bad, donate them. There are cameras for a reason. The cold retort stung Ariana, but her reflex was immediate. She stepped in front of Ethan, shielding him as she always had. You can't take out your frustration on him just because I don't love you. Damien almost laughed outright. You really think this is about you? Your idea of being good to me is sacrificing me to protect him. That was when Clara arrived. Her gaze swept over the crowd before she strode forward and pulled Damien behind her. Looks like Vale Group has too much free time on its hands, she said, her voice cool as steel. From now on, I don't want to see any of these people in connection with Whitmore Group business. Her assistant stepped up with security footage in hand. At Clara's order, he left immediately to carry it out. Without waiting for a reaction, Clara led Damien away. Watching the pair go, Damien protected by someone with such commanding presence, then noticing the security team moving in, the rest finally realized they'd crossed the wrong line. Watching the assistant loop the surveillance footage on the large screen, showing clearly that it had been Ethan who provoked the incident, everyone present felt a rush of regret. But their regret wasn't about their own behavior, it was about the fact that they had now jeopardized their own interests. Some of them were Whitmore Group employees, who soon received termination emails from HR. Furious, they wanted to curse Ethan out, but seeing Ariana standing protectively beside him reminded them she was equally untouchable. They could only swallow their anger. Others worked for Whitmore Group's partners. When word of the incident reached those companies, some were fired outright to avoid any risk of retaliation. After everyone dispersed, conversations buzzed about how Ethan had just shot himself in the foot. His reputation was in tatters. The earlier scandal, Ariana's divorce coinciding with Ethan's public confession, had already been criticized by some, though many defended him, believing he'd simply been caught up in Ariana's pursuit. This time, the narrative flipped completely. An unknown blogger posted the footage to YouTube, sparking a wave of online discussion. With the tide turning, nobody defended him anymore. Comments poured in, blaming him for the mess. Seeing this, Ethan flew into a rage, smashing everything in his apartment. Meanwhile, Ariana was drowning in damage control. Business partners with ongoing contracts began freezing funds and shipments, citing that she'd offended the wrong people. Those up for renewal turned to her competitors instead, forcing Ariana to practically live at the office. Unable to reach her, Ethan grew more irritable. Lena, however, stayed close, comforting him at every turn. One night, under the haze of alcohol, they ended up in bed together. Afterward, Ethan convinced himself that Ariana's recent coldness was just a result of stress and adjusting to Damien's absence. In his mind, she was still the endlessly forgiving woman she'd always been. With that delusion intact, he became even bolder with Lena, going to movies, taking trips, even bringing her home to spend the night. All of it was funded by Ariana's credit card. At the office, Ariana's phone kept pinging with spending alerts. Already stretched thin from the corporate crisis, she seethed. Ethan's lack of concern for her was one thing, but now, with the company on the brink, he was still burning through money without restraint. So, no matter how packed her schedule, she made time to pay him a visit. When Ariana opened the door, she was greeted by a mess of clothes strewn across the floor, accompanied by the unmistakable sounds of a man and woman in the throes of passion coming from the bedroom. Disbelieving, she walked over and pushed the door open, only to find Ethan and Lena completely naked, still entangled. The sight of Ariana standing there sent Ethan into a panic. He yelped, scrambling to pull a blanket over them. His nervous fumbling only made things worse. He shifted awkwardly, and to his horror, found himself stuck inside Lena, unable to pull free. Ariana's face drained of color. Rage and shock collided, overwhelming her until she collapsed to the floor in a dead faint. 2 ambulances arrived, one for Ariana, and another for Ethan and Lena. The latter had no choice but to be wrapped in blankets by the paramedics, unable to dress themselves. Cheating scandals were common enough, but 2 lovers literally stuck together was another matter entirely. Every bystander's gaze followed them, and some opportunists captured the scene on video, uploading it to YouTube. It went viral instantly. People who knew the pair began filling in the online audience, rehashing not only this latest spectacle but also the earlier infidelity rumors. Footage from Ariana's birthday party, where Ethan's behavior had already raised eyebrows, resurfaced. The truth spread fast. The man now humiliated in the video was the same one who'd stolen his roommate's wife, and here he was again, cheating, this time caught in the act. Commenters didn't know whether to pity Ariana or call her foolish for ever trusting him. When Ariana regained consciousness, she immediately froze Ethan's access to her funds and cut off all support to Marlowe Group. She had her assistant handle the arrangements, refusing to see him in person, and ordered him to move out of the villa she'd been paying for. Marlowe Group, already floundering after Ethan's father's poor business decisions, had only managed to maintain its lavish lifestyle because of Ariana's backing. Ethan had returned from Canada specifically to push Damien aside and secure her support. Now that Ariana was done with him, his family's bankruptcy was all but certain. Evicted and reduced to a cramped apartment, Ethan found Lena gone as well. She had only been interested in the money tree he represented, and now that he was broke, she vanished without a backward glance. Left with nothing, Ethan clung desperately to the idea of winning Ariana back. But every attempt to approach her was met with an impenetrable wall of bodyguards. During this period, Ariana's life only worsened. The Whitmore Group launched a full-scale assault on Vale Group, and as a newcomer in the industry, she stood no chance against such a well-established competitor. Fueled by the rage of Ethan's betrayal, Ariana made several rash decisions in the heat of the moment, missteps that pushed her already struggling company to the brink, leaving no room for recovery. When it became clear that bankruptcy was inevitable, her body, still fragile from a recent ER visit, gave out again. Overwhelmed by anger in her office, she coughed up blood and was rushed back to the emergency room. By the time she was discharged, Vale Group had already declared bankruptcy and entered liquidation. Her bank accounts, properties, and luxury cars were all frozen. With nowhere else to go, Ariana thought of Damien. He had treated her so well, yet she had taken him for granted, rushing to Ethan at the crook of his finger like an obedient dog. That weakness had led to everything crumbling. Refusing to admit her own fickleness was to blame, she chose instead to lay it all at Ethan's feet. She sought him out to settle the score. Seeing her at his door, Ethan assumed she had come to reconcile, only to find she was there to blame him for her bankruptcy. Their argument quickly escalated. "You're a useless waste of space, and now you're here blaming me? Did I force you to stick to me? Weren't you the one always chasing me? If it weren't for you, Damien and I would still be together. All I had to do was crook a finger and you came running. And this is all my fault? When Damien was in the hospital after the car accident, you ignored him to spend your time with me. Was I holding you hostage? You left him on the side of a rain-soaked highway with his stomach in agony. Did I tell you to do that?" From the outside looking in, Ariana finally heard the full weight of what she had done to Damien. It hit her just how cruel and callous she had been. She had wronged Damien. She had hurt him. It had always been her fault. No one else's. "Ethan, after everything that's happened, do you really feel no guilt? No regret?" she asked, watching his mouth run on and on. To her, it was a bitterly absurd question. Guilt? Regret? Why should I feel either? Ariana, you've known me since we were kids. You know exactly what I'm like. I say something and you believe it without question. Don't you realize how much of what I told you was a lie? All I did was give voice to the thoughts you already had. You used my words as your excuse and pretended it was all for me. But from start to finish, you've only ever acted for yourself." Ariana had no reply. She turned on her heel and walked away. Her heart finally collapsed completely, yet she still longed to see Damien one last time, just to tell him she was sorry. But when Ariana tried to approach him, the bodyguards Clara had arranged kept her entirely shut out of Damien's life. The boomerang she had once thrown had now come hurtling back to strike her squarely between the eyes. One day, when the guards' vigilance loosened, she seized her chance. Slipping into the parking garage, she intercepted Damien as he appeared. He stared at the woman blocking his way, taking a moment before recognizing her. The Ariana before him was a shadow of the woman she once was, her aura of glamour gone. Yet his heart stirred not at all. Instead, he regarded her with a furrowed brow. "What are you doing here?" Faced with Damien's complete lack of emotion, Ariana felt a sharp pang in her chest. The sadness washed over her, her eyes growing red as her voice caught. "I came to apologize," she said. "When we were together, my neglect caused you so much pain. Every time I lied about a business trip, guilt ate at me, so I had my assistant send you gifts, thinking they could somehow make up for my absence. I chased after Ethan and never once looked back at you. The love in your eyes was always so warm and unshakable, but I failed you. If I could, I'd make it right. Please, come back to me. I'll love you with everything I have. I'll rebuild from the ground up, and I'll love only you." Listening to Ariana's regret-laden confession, Damien felt nothing but disgust. If she weren't destitute now, if Ethan hadn't betrayed her and stripped her of everything, she wouldn't be here. She simply craved someone who would love her unconditionally, without ever intending to give the same in return. Had she loved Ethan? Perhaps. But more than love, it had been an obsession, an unhealthy fixation on something she couldn't have. And once she finally got him, it took only a short time before her thoughts began drifting back to Damien. She had attained what she wanted, and so it lost its value. The obsession no longer seemed so rare or precious. Realizing this, Damien felt the last weight in his heart lift. They had both been careless, both failed to grasp the worth of genuine love. There was no reason for him to keep draining himself over it. You're a complete and utter fool, he said coldly. With that, Damien got into his car and drove away, leaving Ariana standing alone. Clara listened to the bodyguard's report with a faint smile, absently twirling the pen between her fingers. She had been waiting for this exact moment. Ariana thought she had slipped through because the guards had been careless, but it had been Clara's design all along. Damien needed to see her one last time in order to let go completely. Both Ariana and Ethan had arrived at their current miserable ends thanks to her careful orchestration. She was simply tired of them buzzing around Damien like persistent flies. They might not have been a real threat, but they were an irritation she refused to tolerate. Ethan's been in contact with some thug, planning to tamper with Mr. Cross's car. Tisk, disgusting fly. Get in touch with their boss. It's been a while, invite him to dinner. Yes. Ariana's last scrap of value is gone. Take care of her too. Yes. Clara, I'm here to pick you up, Damien's voice broke through her thoughts. She gave her assistant a quick look to leave and stood to greet him. Wrapping her arms around him, she felt the fatigue of the workday melt away. I swear, I want to keep you tied to me so I can see you every second. You're always busy with that company. Do you know how long it's been since we had a proper date? Damien looked a little sheepish. He knew he had been wrapped up in launching his new venture and had neglected her. That's why I'm here, picking you up from work. No talk about business tonight. I'm all yours. All right, I forgive you, she said, smiling. Tomorrow's Saturday. Come meet my family, they've been dying to see you. Damien stiffened slightly, not quite ready for that step. Don't worry, she soothed. They just want to meet you. I've been alone for years, my family thought I'd end up single forever. Now that I have a boyfriend, they're curious. Her reassurance eased the tension in his chest. All right. After dinner, come with me to pick up some gifts for them. Emicham. The next morning, Damien followed Clara to her family estate. As the car rolled closer to the sprawling manor, his pulse quickened. He'd been married before, but the feeling now was completely different. Clara. I've been divorced. What if they don't like me? He asked quietly. Don't worry, she said, squeezing his hand. I've told them about you, they feel sorry you had to go through that. My family's easy to get along with. You'll be fine. Her calm voice eased the tight knot in his chest. When they arrived, two elegantly dressed middle-aged figures were already waiting at the door, smiling warmly. Damien exhaled slowly, trying to steady himself. Sensing his nerves, Clara gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. Dad, Mom, this is Damien. Damien, these are my parents. It's a pleasure to meet you, he said, handing over a gift bag. I didn't know what you liked, so I brought a few things I hope you'll enjoy. Clara talks about you all the time, Charlotte, her mother, replied with a smile. You didn't need to bring anything. Your presence is enough. Come in, Clara's grandparents are in the living room. They wanted to greet you too, but I asked them to rest. They're eager to meet you. She took Damien's arm and guided him inside. The grandparents welcomed him warmly, and the afternoon passed in pleasant conversation. When it was time to leave, Charlotte handed Damien a gift bag. Just a little token from our family, she said. In the car, Damien opened it. Inside was a vintage jewelry box containing an exquisite imperial green jade necklace. This is far too valuable, he said, stunned. It's our family heirloom, Clara explained. It's meant for my husband. See? I told you they liked you. I can't accept this, not yet. He tried to hand it back, but she stopped him. You'll have it sooner or later. Or, do you not plan to give me a place in your life? She teased, fastening it around his neck. Against his pale skin, the green gleamed brilliantly. Perfect, she said with satisfaction. Now, let's see what else is in there. Damien pulled out 2 more documents, a deed for an office building downtown, and a transfer contract for an amusement park. With each item, his heart swelled. These weren't polite gestures, they truly welcomed him into the family. On an otherwise ordinary evening, Clara led Damien into a luxurious, tastefully decorated restaurant. The lighting inside was soft and warm, like a scattering of starlight filling every corner. Exquisite artworks adorned the walls, while the gentle flow of classical music drifted through the air, lending the space an air of elegance and tranquility. The table was set with gleaming silverware atop a pristine white tablecloth, and in the center stood a single vase of crimson roses, their fragrance faint yet intoxicating. Above, crystal chandeliers sparkled, casting shimmering reflections across the guests as if they had stepped into a dream. After they were seated, the waiter brought out course after course of delicacies. As Clara introduced each dish with gentle enthusiasm, she and Damien reminisced about the journey they had shared, their memories replaying in their minds like a film. Then, the music in the restaurant changed to Damien's favorite song. Slowly, the lights dimmed until a soft spotlight fell on Clara. She rose from her chair and walked to Damien, drawing a small velvet box from her pocket. Inside was a diamond ring that glimmered like captured starlight. Looking deeply into his eyes, Clara said, "From the moment we met, I knew you were the one I'd been searching for all my life. Everything about you draws me in. Every day with you is filled with happiness and contentment. I want to walk with you through every stage of life, to share all its joys and sorrows. Will you marry me, and let me spend my life loving you?" Around them, the other diners had stopped what they were doing, some applauding softly, others watching with warm smiles. Overwhelmed, tears welled in Damien's eyes. He covered his mouth with trembling hands, happiness shimmering in his gaze as he nodded again and again. "Yes. I will." Clara slipped the ring onto his finger, then wrapped her arms around him, whispering, "I love you, and I never will stop." The restaurant erupted in cheers and applause. Outside, fireworks blossomed in the night sky, their brilliance reflecting on their smiling faces as they held each other close. In that moment, their love story reached a perfect crescendo, even as a brand new chapter quietly began.